Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Gender and Development Studies, SOGDS. Bachelor of Arts, Gender Studies, BEGS. Semester V. BEGS 183 Writing and Study Skills. Block-1 Improving the Basics. Unit-3 Improving Grammar and Punctuation Skills, 3.0 Objectives. After studying this unit and completing the activities, you would be able to explain the significance of grammar in meaning making when learning a language. Distinguish between forms and functions of similar or dissimilar sentences with suitable examples, and establish the relationship, or the lack thereof, between these two aspects. Revisit and review a few selected aspects of English grammar, i.e., tenses, conditional clauses, and passive constructions. Understand some difficult aspects of punctuation. 3.1 Introduction. Grammar is the structural foundation of our ability to express ourselves. The more we are aware of how it works, the more we can monitor the meaning and effectiveness of the way we and others use language. David Crystal, 2004, in Word and Deed, TES. As Julio Fopoli argues, www.esodio.net/spanish/online-classes.html. That a train cannot move without railways, you won't be able to convey your ideas to their full extension without a good command of underlying grammar patterns and structures of the language. As students, we are often faced with a very peculiar and contradictory situation. While we often perform very well in grammar tests, we are unable to use these items to speak fluently or write accurately. Why does that happen? 3.2 Understanding Forms and Functions in English Language. In other units of the block, you must have come across two oft-repeated terms: form of language, function of language. Before we proceed to discuss the relationship between form and function in the English language, let us quickly review the two concepts. The forms of language include the types of sentences, structures, patterns, used, i.e., declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory. These structures that make up the grammar of the language include such things as the present simple, e.g., she reads, or the past continuous, e.g., he was driving, or adjectives of comparison, Pari is taller than Ruby. Or number of nouns, I found a little child crying on the road and a few older children talking to her. On the other hand, language functions refer to its purposes, its use, and what it does when we use language to communicate. These are informative language function, communicating information such as facts; comparison and contrast, cause and effect relationship, summarizing, sequencing, questioning, answering, techniques, etc. Expressive language functions, reporting feelings or attitudes or evoking these feelings in the reader or listener, e.g., persuasion, agreeing, disagreeing, apologizing, expressing enthusiasm, disappointment, dealing with anger, sadness, indifference, etc. Directive language functions, using language to cause or prevent actions, such as commands or requests, e.g., inviting some of your friends to dinner, giving directions to reach the restaurant, how to make soft rotis, etc. We must comprehend and appreciate the fact that there is no one-to-one match between grammatical form and communicative functions. For example, the room is quite warm. Declarative sentence in simple present tense might be used in different contexts as informative, an observation; expressive, how one feels at the moment; or directive, to switch on the air conditioner. Hence, you must realize that a context often determines the purpose of an utterance. Similarly, if we wish to invite someone, we use the language of inviting. For example, we might say, "Are you free this Saturday? Would you like to come to the picnic we are planning to have? We will be very happy if you come to the picnic with us this Saturday. How about coming to the picnic on Saturday?" Hence, for every function there is a number of different ways to express it. What is common in the following sentences: form or function? Do that and you'll be in trouble. You'd better not do that. If you do that, you'll be in trouble. I wouldn't do that, if I were you. Mind you don't do that. Besides the informative, expressive, and directive language functions mentioned in this section, we have the ceremonial language use, performative utterances, and emphatic expressions. Let us look at these functions. Performative utterances, language which performs the action it reports, e.g. I do in marriage ceremony, or words like promise, apologize or congratulate. The words denote an action which is performed. Ceremonial or ritual language use, e.g. dearly beloved, we are gathered here together to unite the young couple into holy matrimony, different from simply mixing expressive in directive language because performative aspects are also included. Phatic language conversations accomplishing a social task or even a nod or a wave of hand to greet somebody. 3.3 The use of tenses in English. Now let us look at some aspects of grammar which sometimes cause problems for us. The concept of time, tense and aspect of a verb is an important area which demands our attention. But before we proceed further, comment on the following statements. The verb form is the main marker of time in an English sentence. Present tense is always used to express present time in English. There is no future tense in English. Now read on and compare what we think about these statements. 1. The verb phrase is usually the time marker in most cases but is reinforced in the form of a time adverbial. The term tense is traditionally used to refer to the way the verb changes its endings to express a time meaning. For example, my husband loves gardening. Come winter and he is busy with his petunias, lobelias, dahlias, chrysanthemums and whatnot. He is now watering the plants. Indian Super League defending champions Atletico de Kolkata is all set to train for a month in Spain. I had viral fever last week. I still feel very weak. 2. Usually the present tense indicates present time e.g. I'm awfully busy right now. Don't disturb me. I have a severe headache. But the simple present tense can also indicate future time, e.g. I fly to Trivandrum next week. Fixed plan. Pari, my granddaughter, wants to be a tennis champion. It is her dream to play in the courts of Wimbledon. Pranoy, my grandson, on the other hand, dreams of being an airplane pilot. Childhood ambitions, indefinite future plans. 3. There is no separate tense marker in English to indicate future tense. EGS at the end of verb with the third person singular subject indicating simple tense, for example. The president leaves for London tomorrow. Therefore, English has two tenses. Traditional grammarians call these tenses present and past. More modern names for these are actual and remote. However, there are 5 ways of expressing future time. For example, Taru will be admitted to the hospital tomorrow. Will, shall. She is going to have a baby. Going to. My daughter is coming next week to spend a day with us. Simple present. Continuous. Ask her to call me when she leaves the house. Simple present. I'm about to complain to the Resident Welfare Association president about our neighbors' noisy late-night parties. About to. We would like to draw your attention, very briefly, to the point that it is possible to use the same form, i.e. present or past tense, to talk of different points of time. In the words of David Crystal, we can say that, backquote, there is no identity between tense and time. Present and past. Tenses can be used to refer to all parts of a timeline, i.e., past time, present time includes now and future time. This you can easily understand if you read the following sentences carefully. All these sentences express habitual or routine actions. What are the different ways in which the function is realized? Mr. Misra is a chain smoker. Verb in simple present tense. Pushpa is a very efficient assistant. Use of adjective and noun, verb in simple present tense. Ashish used to drink. Used to drink in the past, has now discontinued the practice. Pratyush cannot sleep at night without reading a few pages from a novel. Use of modal auxiliary verb can with the negative not and simple present tense to indicate habitual activity, inability to do without something. Avantika is always spilling food on the floor. Present continuous tense to show repeated action, as the tense of the verb form indicates the time at which an action takes place. The aspect of the verb refers to how the time of action is regarded, i.e. whether it is complete, in progress, or showing duration. You have already learnt in school that the present continuous progressive aspect is used to express an event in progress at a given time. The present continuous tense is formed by combining the verb be, is, am, are with the ing ending to indicate an event in present time. The usual implication is that the activity is taking place over a limited period and the situation is temporary. For example, Shilpi is working from home today. Don't make noise. The baby is sleeping. The children are playing in the park. On the other hand, if we want to talk of an action that started in the past and is seen in relation to a later event or time, we usually use the present perfect tense. G. He has been in prison for 15 years. He is probably still there. I have lived in Delhi for 5 years. I still do. The perfective aspect is formed by using the verb have. For example, the train has arrived. It is on platform number 4. Suhas and Aditi have finished washing the dishes. I have worked for 3 hours at a stretch. She has been ill for quite some time. Students of English as a second language find it difficult to decide when to use the present perfect aspect and when to use the past tense. Remember, whenever you are reviewing the verb forms in the present and past tense, the past tense means past happening related to past time. The happening is related to a definite time in the past, e.g. we went to Srinagar in 2011. My father was 86 when he passed away last year. The definite time in the past is usually identified by a past time adverbial in the same sentence or the preceding language context. In contrast, the perfect aspect is used for a past happening which is seen in relation to a later event or time. Thus, the present perfect means past happening related to present time, e.g. we have eaten all the curd rice for lunch. There isn't any left. Have you completed the project proposal? You are expected to submit it now. Different kinds of adverbials are associated with the past tense and the present perfective, e.g. I saw Tara a week ago. I have not seen Shefali since December. Using the wrong adverbial is a common error made by English learners. Your teachers must have made you conscious of the fact that the verb is the central element of a sentence. We would like to remind you here that you have to learn all about tense and aspect of verbs because a good knowledge of verbs is important to infer and comprehend the signification of the relationship of the different sentences that are chosen for assessing your comprehension skills. You would also need verbs to express your ideas in any kind of writing tasks, be it descriptive, expository, discursive or narrative, or even a simple task like letter writing or answering questions based on reading texts. For transformation exercises which are set in your examination question papers, you would need a thorough knowledge of the correct form of the verb. The two other subtopics that we have selected to discuss in this unit, conditional clauses and passive constructions, are also verb related, but we will discuss more of it later. 3.4 Probable hard spots for ESL learners. Students of English, who are no longer beginners but are not yet fully proficient, face problems in different grammar areas. Contemporary grammarians and authors like Penny and John Eastwood have identified a few topics with the conditional clauses, the use of passive constructions, phrasal verbs, the meaning of different verb forms, prepositions and so on as probable hard spots for ESL learners. In this section we would briefly touch upon the major pitfalls in understanding and using conditional clauses and passive constructions. 3.4.1 The conditionals. Conditional clauses, in complex sentences, are related to adverbial, reason clauses. They discuss the consequence of something which may or may not be a real event. Usually, the second language learners are taught three types of conditionals, although it is the third conditional that the students find difficult to grasp and use effectively. The first conditional is an open condition, i.e. what is said in the condition is possible and refers to either present or future time. For example, if we hurry, we will get the tickets for the morning show. Syntactical structure. Conditional clause, main clause. If present tense, will infinitive consequence. If I hear any news, I'll ring you. If he does not come on time, we'll go without him. If my father gets to know about this, he will be very upset. If I save enough money, I'll go on a Mediterranean cruise. The second conditional is an unreal or improbable situation, also known as a hypothetical condition. The tense of the verb in the conditional clause is in the simple past tense and the verb in the main clause is would or should. If I had more time, I would visit my friends more often. If I walked for at least 20 minutes every day, my blood sugar would be more controlled. If Shalini didn't know what to do, she should have asked you. Although the main clause often has would, we can also use could or might. If I had a camera, I could take a few photographs. If you had a calculator, we could finish the calculations faster. In second conditional clauses, we sometimes use were instead of was, especially in the clause. If I were you. Examples. If I were you, I would ask a doctor for some advice. If I were you, I would settle the dispute as early as possible. Please note, although we are using the past tense, the time that we are talking about is the. Present equals now, e.g. if I knew the name of the author, I would tell you. Syntactical structure. Conditional clause main clause. If past tense could, would infinitive. If I had money, I would buy a house in Kasoli. If you needed an invitation to the opening ceremony, I could get you one. Third conditional. In these types of sentences we are talking of hypothetical or unreal conditions, and imagining the result of the situation. Unreal, hypothetical conditions are those where something had not happened in the past and therefore the result is being imagined. If you had studied harder throughout the term, you would have done much better in the examinations. But you didn't work hard and therefore you did not do well. If you had told me that you were interested in seeing the play The War Horse, I would have booked your ticket along with ours. But you didn't tell me earlier. And so I didn't buy a ticket for you. Syntactical structure. Conditional clause main clause. If past perfect, would, could, might have past participle. The third conditional clause talks about the past. It is used to describe a situation that did not happen in the past, and so the result of this situation is unreal, imaginary. If I hadn't eaten so much, I wouldn't have felt sick, but I did eat a lot, and so I did feel sick. If you had taken a taxi, you wouldn't have missed the train. Mummy wouldn't have been so tired if she had gone to bed earlier. Ronnie would have been on time for the interview if he had left the house at 8:15. Remember, we do not normally use will or would in the conditional clause, but only in the main clause. But there are exceptions. We can use will in the if clause when we make a request. If you'll just hold on for a minute, I'll ask mother to take your call. If you want to learn more about tenses in conditional clauses, you can refer to Collins Company. Build English Grammar or a Communicative Grammar of English by Leach and Swarthwick. 3.4.2 Passive Constructions. Understanding the meanings, uses and functions of the passive voice is another difficult area for ESL learners, and this has been reported by many ESL, EFL teachers. As passive constructions are fairly frequent in academic and scientific writings, learners are often required to use passive forms in documenting experiments or reports of significant events of their institutions. We often choose to use passive structures when we want to talk about an action, but are not interested in saying who or what does it. For example, English is spoken by everyone here. Another point that you need to remember is, when the verb in a sentence is intransitive. When the verb does not take an object, it cannot be changed into passive voice. For example, Shubhak and Mandira have a nice house, and not, a nice house is had by Shubhak and Mandira. Similarly, my dresses don't fit me anymore cannot be changed to I'm not fitted by my dresses. My sister lacks tact, and not tact is lacked by my sister. They walked into the room, and not the room was walked into. In this section we will briefly touch upon the situations in which passive constructions are more appropriate. But before we go into these details, let us revise how passives are formed. Although we know that you are familiar with it, passive forms consist of an appropriate tense of the verb be followed by a past participle of the verb. For example, his friend was shot in the chest and he died on the spot. In this sentence the subject is his friend and the passive construction is formed by using be. Was, shot, past participle. What according to you is the difference between the sentences? A. His friend was shot in the chest and he died on the spot. Passive. B. The robbers shot his friend in the chest and he died on the spot. Active. In the second sentence, we obviously want to draw your attention to the robbers, the doer, or the agent of the action instead of his friend, the person affected by the shooting. Thus, there is a shift of emphasis. This transformation from active sentence, B, to passive sentence, A, is possible because the verb shot is used as transitive verb and has a distinct object. However, there are a number of exceptions. Active verb forms cannot be passivized when a. The object is a reflexive, reciprocal or possessive pronoun. For example, she hurt herself in the darkness. Reflexive. During the floods in Chennai, the neighbors helped each other. Reciprocal. B. Verbs in the active sentence like resemble or lack. For example, I lack patience. My brother resembles my mother. You already know that we prefer to choose a passive construction when it is preferable not to mention the performer or when we do not know who the performer is. For example, our house was burgled when we had gone abroad for a holiday. In situations of social and historical significance, the passive form is used. The Agra fort, which was earlier a brick fort, was held by the Chauhan Rajputs. Later it was rebuilt in red sandstone during the reign of Akbar. The Fatehpur Sikri was also constructed during this period in honor of the great Sufi saint Salim Chishti. Passives are used to describe a process. To make methi parathas, wheat flour is mixed with besan and sieved. Finely chopped. Methi leaves are mixed into the flour mixture and kneaded. For classifying, based on the components and size of the participles, soil is classified into different types. Namely sandy, clay, silt, loamy, peat, and chalky soil. For making proposals, the Abacus project, which was proposed for children between the ages of 4 to 14, would be used not only to promote better numeracy skills but also to stimulate visual memory for faster mental operations. For warning, driving should be avoided after too many alcoholic drinks at a party. For defining, a delta, or an area of low flat fertile land, is shaped like a triangle. Deltas are formed where the river splits into several branches before entering the sea. They are formed in regions of low tides and coastal plains. For offering suggestions, don't you think that contractual staff who have been in this office for more than 10 years should be regularized? 3.5 Punctuation. While we have extensively discussed grammar, we intend to be briefer where punctuation is concerned. Our emphasis will be on problem areas which you as students face in your writing. Have you ever asked yourself the question, why do we need punctuation? Well, punctuation is required to clarify your written thoughts and ideas, so that your readers can understand you easily, just as your pauses, tone of voice, rhythm help your listeners to comprehend your speech and attitude. Punctuation does much the same for the written word. Let us look at some sentences which may cause confusion because of punctuation. Confusing. Has the tiger in the first cage been fed? Me too. Clear. Has the tiger in the first cage been fed? Me too. Confusing. The teacher called the children names. Clear. The teacher called the children's names. You all know when to use a period or full stop, so we will not go into details of this here. Let us turn to the question mark. You know that you use a question mark after every direct question. Example, may I borrow an umbrella? Are you going out in the rain? But you do not use a question mark after an indirect question. Such as, Pushpa asked me why I was late. Devender wondered why his students always forgot their notebooks at home. The exclamation mark. The exclamation follows words, phrases or sentences which show strong emotions. Fire, fire, ring up the fire station. What a beautiful sight. The comma, this can be a tricky area, so we shall make you aware of certain rules you must follow. Use a comma to separate two independent or main clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction such as and, nor, but, yet, so, etc. Example, he is rich, but he is dishonest. Hurry up, or you will miss the train. Conjunctive adverbs, such as however, moreover, this, consequently, therefore, are frequently followed by commas when they appear in the middle of a sentence. Example, Rani felt, consequently, that Ravi was not a responsible husband. Comma is used after an introductory phrase or clause. Example, after we had finished dinner, we discovered that we had forgotten to take out the special salad from the fridge. We use a comma to separate a non-defining relative, adjective, clause from the main clause. In a non-defining relative or adjective clause, the information can be omitted without changing the meaning of the main clause. My husband, who is a surgeon, is going to USA for a specialized degree. Use a comma to set off yes, no, well. Example, yes, I am in the hotel industry. The semicolon, use a semicolon to link two closely related independent clauses. Example, Sanjeev Kapoor has been cooking Multani-style cuisine for several years without realizing it. All the spices he uses have a Multani flavor. The colon, you already know that a colon is used to introduce a long list. Oil is of three kinds: mineral, vegetable and animal. A colon may be used to introduce a quotation or definition. Example, this is one of the definitions of a bore, a person who talks when you wish him to listen. Quotation marks. You already know when you use quotation marks. You use quotation marks to enclose someone's spoken or written words. Example, he said, "What a pity you just missed the first position in the IAS exam." Notice you use the quotation marks to enclose the exact words of a speaker or a writer. Use a single quotation marks to enclose a quotation within a quotation. Example, Professor Vibha asked her class, "Do you agree with Samuel Johnson, who once said that a second marriage represents the triumph of hope over experience?" Example from Virak. The apostrophe, one, we use the apostrophe to indicate a contraction. It's too bad that you didn't pass the assessment. It says a contraction for it is. 2, we add an apostrophe to a noun to show possession. Example, Rajiv's book, The Lion's Share, Women's Group. 3, add only an apostrophe to a plural noun ending in s to show possession. Examples, the girls' hostel, students' common room. 4, the apostrophe is also used to indicate omission of a letter in a word. Examples, I have, I've, must not, mustn't, the dash. 1, a dash can be used in place of a colon. The river is polluted, there is a chemical factory upstream. 2, a dash can also be used as an afterthought. He used to be very good at cricket and football too, of course. Hyphen, hyphens can join two or more words together. Examples, blue-eyed, broad-shoulder, out-of-date information. 2, when an adjective is made up of two or more words, a hyphen is used. However, it is not used when the same combination of words is not an adjective. Examples, Rita is a 2-year-old girl, but Rita is 2 years old. 3, sometimes you have a choice to use a hyphen or not. Example, living room or living room. 3.6 Summary. We cannot ignore grammar in language as it directly influences the effectiveness and meaning of what we would like to convey. Language and grammar both go side by side, we cannot separate one from another. Forms of languages tell us about different sentence patterns and the inflections of nouns, for indicating number, gender, adjectives, for degrees of comparison, verbs, for time, tense and aspect, pronouns, person, number, gender, etc. All this contributes to the overall meaning of a sentence, paragraph, and discourse. Language functions are more about communication and can be informative, expressive, directive, phatic, ceremonial or performative. There is no one-to-one correlation between grammatical form and communicative function. The same expression may convey different meanings in different contexts. The time marker in most sentences is the verb phrase, which in most cases is corroborated by an adverb. There are two tenses in the English language, present and past tense, while future time is indicated in a variety of ways. The aspect of the verb tells us whether the action is in progress, continuous, or if an action is continuing up to the present, perfective. We hope you found this unit useful. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with the next chapter.